known. Now moving to item 3, public participation. We have 2 public forum items this morning, the first of which is representatives from the Greening the Red Zone and Red Zone Dark Sky Park Committee. So if I could invite Kaya, Xavier and Tanya Didham to the table, please. Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now you have 5 minutes for this public forum item, which you can use as you wish, and it's entirely your choice whether you leave time for questions or not. But we're running quite strictly to time this morning, and we're pleased to give you the 5 minutes to use as you wish.
Thank you very much. Boom, let's go. Very much time is of the essence, so I'm just going to hand pretty much over to Kyra Xavier here, who's my colleague, on LED lighting.
Okay, as time is short and this topic is so important, vast and complex, I'll focus on the core issues and read directly from my notes. While I'm representing the Lightwise Guild today, which provides guidance on responsible lighting, I'm also the New Zealand Ambassador for the global campaign Women in Lighting and a researcher for the Zurich-based Light and Lighting Research Consortium. I've co-authored peer-reviewed scientific papers about LED lighting, health and safety, and the need for proper standards and guidance in numerous journals. And I mention this to give more weight to what I'm about to say. While the lighting industry and the NZTA wants us to believe LED lighting technology being rolled out around New Zealand is safe, appropriate, and effective, I'm here to tell you otherwise. There's plenty of reasons why, but underlying all of the misleading arguments that promote white LED street lighting is one irrefutable fact. Introducing high-intensity white light at night into the environment is unsound. Not only does it harm flora and fauna and further burden ecosystems, it's also detrimental to human general health, and it compromises safety, security, and life quality. Quite simply, we cannot argue with millions of years of evolution and our own biology, and in regards to the unique characteristics and properties of LED technology, we also cannot defy science and the laws of physics. As more evidence continues to accrue and awareness is raised about the many drawbacks of the vast majority of LED technology, the less sense this lighting makes. Just last week, the French health watchdog ANSYS announced a warning statement about the harm caused by high-intensity LED lighting. White LED street lighting has been aggressively marketed in recent years with insufficient understanding of its impact and risks and a lack of safety testing. As a result, there are common misleading claims still being made to promote it. Rather than debunk each one, I'd like to focus instead on what makes lighting safe, effective, and fit for purpose. I'd also like to explain the benefits responsible lighting delivers, and most importantly, show you what it looks like, and that's what this is here for today. First and foremost, new LED lighting must do no harm. This is why the light emitted by an LED luminaire should be no brighter, no whiter, no glarier and harsh than the high-pressure sodium lighting it replaces. It also needs to be well distributed and evenly dispersed. The LED chips themselves should not be exposed to the human eye, and proper diffusing optics must be integrated. New LEDs must have a safe and appropriate spectral power distribution and as little blue wavelength content as possible. And I'd like to point you to the documents that you would have received regarding Lumican's comparison chart. The light that LEDs emit should have an equal and improved SP ratio to the high-pressure sodium lighting it replaces. It should also have a melanopic lux equal to or improved to the lighting it replaces. LED luminaires should reduce light trespass, not worsen it. LED luminaires must also allow easy wayfinding and navigation and provide safety and security. For more information on each of the previous points, please see the document that you received called Safe and Effective LED Street Lighting for Dunedin. To conclude, a new LED retrofit must use fit-for-purpose luminaires and provide lighting that is biologically and ecologically responsible. Thanks to innovative advances in technology, this is now possible, and such lighting is available in New Zealand. It's energy efficient and it's also affordable. You can see this technology outperforms other LED lighting recommended by the NZTA on Lumican's comparison key metrics chart. These particular luminaires also have a colour rendering index of 80 for easy identification of colours. Despite the NZTA's outmoded stance on high-intensity white street lighting, there are no justifiable reasons why we should not favour these safer, more appropriate light sources. Lighting up our nights as if they were day is not appropriate. Let's also remember that biodiversity is crucial to Christchurch, the garden city of New Zealand. Of major concern, white lighting is particularly unsuited for log marshalling sites at ports such as Littleton. I'd like to conclude by saying shielded, low glare, energy efficient, amber 2200 Kelvin LED luminaires are our safest, most practical alternative to high pressure sodium luminaires currently available and the most biologically and ecologically sound choice. So have I got it? Can I show you this?
Very quickly.
Okay. This is what's available now. Right? Can you see? There's no glare. The light is evenly distributed. The colour is very warm. It ticks all the boxes. It's really exciting, and this is the future of street lighting. Okay?
Great. Thank you very much indeed for the presentation and for the demonstration as well. Very interesting. And thank you very much indeed for taking the time to come along this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
What we could do with this is to refer it to the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee, with staff to provide advice to that committee so that this can be picked up. I think that would be a good thing to do. So, if we can refer this to ITI for staff to provide advice to the committee, and then obviously the committee can pick this up as they wish.
Get a report though, so it comes back to council. I mean, a number of us raised concern when we went to the conversion of LEDs, and it's quite concerning to hear some of the things that have been said. But it would be good to get like a formal report coming back through. So
let's refer it to the committee, and then obviously if the committee choose to get some formal reporting on it and make some recommendations to council, that's the way it would come back. But the committee is absolutely the right place for it to go in the meantime. So let's do that. Thank you very much indeed for raising it and allowing us to continue the conversation. Thank you. Okay, the next public participation item is from Rebecca Finch. Rebecca, I'd invite you to the table, thank you. And you're going to present to the council. You have 5 minutes regarding citizens' assemblies and sortition. So you have 5 minutes to discuss that matter with us. Thank you.
So it's fantastic today that you vote on the declaration for a climate and ecological emergency, and you'll let the public know how serious the situation is that we face. You have done so much already. Your response to climate breakdown is 1,000,000 times ahead of ECAN's, and you deserved to be the ones who made New Zealand history. You have been awesome. I'm here to offer you a vision of what comes next and how we will navigate through the crisis. We have all been through an emergency before with the quakes. Typically what happens once an emergency is declared is that governing bodies give themselves extraordinary powers and democracy disappears and consultation and inclusion of the people's voices stops. That's what happened here. The council's response was great, but the government seized power from all of us. And if that happened with the climate emergency, it would be a double jeopardy. We need to be part of this.
We've seen what a disaster the earthquake response was, how much extra it cost us to have sidelined the community voice, Poor decisions were made that have had to be rectified afterwards at considerable extra cost. We had such an opportunity to future-proof this city with insurance money, and now we're going to have to pay for it ourselves. Power was taken, and the community still feels disenfranchised about the process.
A citizens' assembly is a form of deliberative democracy. Some people love to shout at politicians. Citizens' assemblies are designed to eliminate the shouting. If citizens decide what we are going to do about the emergency, then they can't shout at politicians. Climate chaos is way too big for the business as usual form of democracy. Democracy needs to innovate, just like businesses innovate when new factors are in play, and the climate and ecological crisis is one hell of a new player. Transparency is key to working hand in glove with our citizens. A citizens' assembly delivers that. It is a body formed from the citizens of a state to deliberate on an issue or issues of national, local, or in this case, international importance. The membership of a citizens' assembly is randomly selected, as in other forms of sortition. On Monday, France announced they would hold a citizens' assembly on the climate crisis. Sortition is the method of selection of the panel of people who will be part of a citizens' assembly. Sortition is the gold standard selection process. You take a random selection of postcodes and you post out invitations. The sampling is stratified. People are selected to represent the wider society in terms of demographics. To get 60 participants, you need to write about 10,000 letters. It's my personal opinion that the participants need to reflect youth as well. I think age range should perhaps begin at around 10. Children hold great wisdom. Invested with authority and funding from the state, local council or a community board, a broad goal is decided upon and the process begins. Basically, people get together with facilitators for a series of weekends and have access to experts, a bit like that lady that presented with the lights just then, and advisory panels. Independent professional facilitators run the process and recommendations go back to governing authority for acceptance or not. An example of a question for the climate chaos might be something like, what should Christchurch's response to climate breakdown be?
I went to a presentation on Tuesday night on the South Shore How team. It was really exciting. It was really exciting to see how this council is already trying out a model that has elements of a citizens' assembly, being run by a community group rather than an agency and paying members for their time. The differences are that in a citizens' assembly, the agency isn't there at all, and how the decision is used depends on the scope of the assembly. So the Irish used it to make a recommendation to their government, and the recommendation can be binding or not. The inclusion of all sectors of society is another difference, and that ensures that the whole community feels represented in the decision making and no one is left behind.
That brings us to the end of the 5 minutes.
Oh.
And we are needing to run to tight timing this morning because of the volume of the agenda and other timing matters. So whilst I realise that there's probably more that you were wanting to present to us, there isn't the opportunity to do that this morning, unfortunately. But thank you very much indeed for taking the time to come along and to raise what clearly is a different and interesting way of doing things. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you. What we can do is to make sure that the whole presentation is circulated to councillors, so that we've got the benefit of seeing the whole presentation, even though you weren't able to get to the end of it from a physical presentation point of view this morning. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my understanding is Vicky, that's correct, isn't it? It's already come to the Innovation and Sustainable Development Committee?
Not on
Yeah, excellent. No, if it's already been picked up, then that's helpful. All right. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to present to us this morning. Thank you. So now moving on to item 3.2, deputations by appointment, and we have a deputation on item 7, which is the Christchurch Squash Club. So welcome to the table. As a deputation, you have 10 minutes to present to council, and if you wanted to allow time for any questions, that would be included within that 10 minutes. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ed Post, our Treasurer, and Mike Harris with the Penny. So just to begin, hope this works. Joe, hopefully it works. Can we pause the clock for a second? No, it's not a spinning squash ball.
Technology is great when it works, isn't it?
I think that's right. It's letting us...
Here we go.
So this is just to give you a first taste of the new technologies available to squash around the world. It came out of Germany, and I guess it's a tool that's both going to be attractive for juniors, for training. It's probably a bit like the device at the library. It's a touch screen. Basically it has a projector on the ceiling that allows people, there's lots of different ways that this can be used, both in terms of training. It can be used for accuracy. This number 4 in the world, that's Rosman, who's based in Germany. It's for kids, obviously, to play with their parents, to give some ideas. And there's a paint game, there's more accuracy. One of the good things about this application is you can actually test yourself about any player around the world. You sign into this, you can see how you compare with other players all over the world, other people from New Zealand or other people from your own club. So they've introduced games like these. There's examples like the old Space Invaders game as well. You can play music to attract kids. So this plays music at the same time. This probably doesn't play fur release, but it probably plays, depends how good your squash shots are, I suppose. There's a Space Invaders version as well to attract the kids. And there's lots of other things. There's more training. There's more training, and towards the end there's a good example of children on the court, if I can get to that, because I don't want this to take too long, and there's an example there. So you can have 5 or 6 kids on the court throwing different balls. It's nice and safe for them, and we can use that for parties, for interactive, but it's about getting kids on court. So we think this will be a great conduit for our club to attract our youth to the sport. So we're very fortunate to have technology like that. So just to carry on, so the reason we're coming here today is we understand there's been a recommendation by Sam Callender and his team to provide $100,000. The reason I've come today is to justify maybe why you need to consider 300. So there's 3 key points here I'd like to make, which either have been overlooked or maybe have just recently come to the market. So the first thing I want to talk about is development contributions. Of the additional $200,000 we're looking for will help us pay for our development contributions to the council. We have been talking to Katrina Guest about how that might work, because we can't obviously open our new facility, which is due to open on the 6th of July, so that's how close we are now. So the development contributions are around $70,000. So in some ways we're sort of robbing Paul to pay Pete. We're saying, can you lend us the money so we can pay the development contributions? And the point I'd like to make is that if you built a facility like this at $4 million, I'm not sure, do the council pay development contributions themselves? I'm not too sure. They do, of course. Well, it's a good answer. Probably not quite the answer I was after. That's a good answer, thank you. Yeah, that's right. Keep an eye on the time. Ed. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, okay. So the second thing is community contribution. Over the years, the Christchurch City Council has withdrawn from squash or supporting squash. So obviously QE2 had a number of courts there. There used to be the Pioneer Stadium as well. Lincoln, the university doesn't have their courts anymore. They had 8 courts there. And the only public courts available at the moment are through the YMC. They have a couple left. I know there's a couple also out at Harewood. And there's obviously the 8-court facility at Squashways on Blenheim Road, which is probably the biggest contributor to squash in Christchurch. But reluctantly, or to our advantage, the owner of that business is now our manager. So he's going to join us as of the 1st of June, and that facility will be closing at the end of the July. So our facility will be the only largest pay-to-play facility providing some value for squash players to the Christchurch community. So that starts, and that's been announced only a couple of weeks ago. It took a few months to negotiate with Paul to get him to come across, but with that brings a lot of experience to our sport, to our club, and to our current members. So just before I go into the last point I'd like to make is that obviously I showed you the interactive squash before because there's a saying, that is that you don't get a second chance of making a good first impression. And us as a committee, it's really important for us to put our best foot forward for our members, because we know when they go in court that they put their best foot forward as well. So we need to make sure when we are attracting people to our new facility, we need to make that first good impression. So the balance of the money is about the first good impression. So the balance of the 60,000, which raises the 100 plus the other 3 to 300,000, is the amount of money that we need. And the last 60,000 helps pay for some technology around electronic scoring, which has just been developed out of Tauranga. It brings to us some TVs in our entranceway. It also allows us to put in some good furniture, because one of the key things is our biggest target in this sport is women in squash, or the lack of it. So I've just been told it's 5 minutes, and I know you want to ask some questions, so my timekeeper here is Ed Post today. So look, I think that kind of covers most of the points I wanted to make today, but just quickly, going to the next page, our target is to have 800 members by the end of 2022, 150 juniors. We've got 7 schools already committed to come with us: Christ College, Cathedral Grammar, Hill Morton, Cashmere, St Michael's, Hagley High, and one other. So they are already coming to join us, and we haven't opened our new facility. We have a big challenge for us is getting women in squash. I've put 434 men is what our target is. They're simple, they turn up. Blokes are pretty simple, they just turn up and have a hit, really. So our key target is here is to develop squash for women. So just very quickly, we've obviously analysed the market in Christchurch. We've looked at the profitability of the 3 clubs that are profitable in New Zealand. We've had a look at our competitor, which is Tauranga, who opened a new facility with 6 courts and now has 600 members. So I know that some of the numbers that you base the support for $100,000 is based on actuals, but in fairness, we think we're going to achieve our target of 800 members by the end of 2022. And that's because we understand our market. We obviously measure the number of people that measure our website every month. We know we've had 725 hits over 7 days or 30 days, because ultimately today's market, with a diminishing number of volunteers, we have to start running this like a business. So we are going to be a strong club also with a pay-to-play aspect. So finally, just our vision. Our vision is transforming levels of participation through community and user engagement. The Christchurch Squash Racket Club puts squash back in the hearts and minds of the health conscious as the activity of choice. So our winning aspiration is to be New Zealand's largest, most profitable and self-sustaining club. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And that has left some time for questions. We've got just over 2 minutes left. So Yanni and Phil. Yanni.
Oh, well, first off, I mean, thank you. I've been around long to know, with the earthquake, I remember you coming and talking to council almost 10 years ago, or 9 years ago, 8 years ago. So thanks for, being diligent and doing the work. It's really neat to see the facility that you've come up with. Just 2 questions. One was, what happened to your old site? And the second one is, did you have any discussions with council staff around a development agreement that instead of the DCs, you would provide, say, X amount of hours for community or school access at low cost or no charge?
Yeah, so we have done that. I think we spoke with Katrina Guest, who's I think involved with development contributions. So we haven't got to the nitty-gritty of that. I mean, a big focus of it is growing juniors. And so we will be providing hours during the week for schools and intermediate schools to attract juniors. So that's a big part of our business plan.
Right, they'll be paying.
Some will pay. I think that we do have a club to run, and we do make it to be self-sustaining. We do require some payment. But I guess, we can apply for funding for that. We can offset it by funding as well.
Thank you. Phil? I'm going to need to give time for other people to ask questions. Phil?
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for engaging with us so well today. You referred to several of the high schools being involved, and you've just now, I think, referred to the intermediate schools. I think you've probably also connected with some of the local primary schools as well.
Yeah, I've presented to the local community board on 4 or 5 occasions over the last 2 years to keep them informed. So we did a survey and we measured the distance and time for all the intermediate schools within the area. And I think you would have attended that one, and there were about 7 or 8 schools that were within about 15-minute walk, and which was around about 2,500 children. So we've looked at that, and again, looking to engage with those schools right now.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. And finally, Tim.
Just to clarify, Squashways on Blenheim Road will be closing.
Correct.
So when you kind of do a cost analysis and threats and weaknesses, etc., you must be stacking up pretty strong with regards to, for want of a better term, there are no real other threats and no other organisations which will be at this level offering the same thing. So you've kind of got a solo market in a sense.
Yeah, look, this has happened recently, and I think the projections we would have provided before, we probably underestimated our pay-to-play now having the largest pay-to-play facility now joining us. 2, there's a host of members from that club will be joining us as well. And I think, another good example of opening a new facility is the badminton facility that's been opened in Wigram. Yep. They, I believe, in their this month have turned over $9,000 worth of pay-to-play, and they've been doing particularly well. And I think, again, just comes as the result of having a brand new facility.
And I realise we're out of time, but just quickly 2 more.
Yep.
First of all, in the South Island, is there anyone that has those types of screens, that modern technology, which is technically, it's not modern, it's actually worldwide, I'd imagine it's just standard now, but in New Zealand it's totally new.
No, there's not. The company that supplies our courts supplied that machine, and I said, if you supply that machine to anyone else, I'm not going to buy your courts. So we are the first club in Christchurch in the South Island to have that interactive ice squash.
Is there anyone else in New Zealand that's got it?
Yes, Howick have just installed it up in East Auckland.
And how many courts do they have?
They have 4.
Yes. Great, thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks very much indeed for presenting us to this morning, and thanks for answers to questions. We will come to the item concerned in just a few minutes. There are a couple of procedural items we need to go through next, and then we'll come to your item probably in 5 to 10 minutes. So
thank you
you're most welcome to stay and listen to the debate and the decision making if you